Today we're headed to a local reef keeper's house to see his aquarium, his frag tank table, and get a quick consultation. Let's go. Hey Reef Builders, my name is Remy and welcome back to another video. We're on the road to 120,000 subscribers, so please help us get there by liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell notification so you know when we post new videos. Salem was in town over the weekend for the local frag swap where he sold and spoke. He also stayed at our house, so I had to take him to a bunch of local fish stores and also a couple of aquariums in the area. I can't wait to share some of those tank tours with you, including this 20-year-old reef tank here in St. Louis. You don't see 20-year-old reef tanks very much, but this one's so mature and so beautiful. I can't wait to show you this one in more detail, that in a future video. Today, we are going to Amir's house to see his 150-gallon innovative marine. Let's not waste any more time. Let's head over there. All right, I'm here at Amir's house. Amir, you're a fellow Slash Club member here in St. Louis. And we've talked about your tank so many times, but this is the first time I've ever been here. So can you tell us what it is and the dimensions and gallons and all that right off the bat?
This is a innovative marine 150 EXT, has an external overflow. It's about 21 inches high, 3 feet deep, and 4 feet long.
Yeah, this is one of Innovative Marine's cool dimensioned tanks, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to have a tank that was kind of had a peninsula look to it, but then also kind of fit into the space that I had available to me. So I decided to go with this tank. I had an Innovative Marine tank before this. And I had pretty good luck with it, so got a pretty good deal. They had, they usually have sales around Christmas time. And,
yeah.
Got it around that time. Couldn't wait to set it up. I remember when I first got it. I got it about 3 years ago. I really like their stands. They're very light. Also, you don't have to worry about rust and stuff like that with them.
So what did you go in thinking you were going to do livestock-wise with this, and does it match where it is now?
Yeah, good question. Definitely when I got this, I wanted a bigger tank so I can have tangs in there. Right now, I kind of have that going in here. I have the tangs in here. Medium size and smaller tangs, they work really well in here, given that it's kind of like a cube shape. They have plenty of space to move around. That's the one thing I got to keep an eye on is like if any of the fish just get too big, give them some place where they can move around more freely. And I think it's almost there. I do have one last fish that I want to get into this tank, which is a powder blue tang. I have purchased it. It's in my frag tank right now. And at some point when I'm brave enough to introduce them into the tank, I will. I've been looking for a starry blenny for a while. I had seen one at the shop a long time ago, and it was kind of a smaller one. And I was afraid if I put him in here, he would just get tortured by the other fish. So I was able to find one at the local fish store here that was a real good chunky size, and it was almost that size when I got him. And so I wasn't afraid of putting him in here because, he could probably handle himself pretty well. He's one of the biggest fishes in here.
And then as far as coral goes, I mean, to me, this is a true mixed reef. I mean, it looks like you've got a little bit of everything. Lots of SPS though. You get the SPS, the acro bug at one point?
You start with the softies, and that's where I started. I started with, with zoas and stuff like that, and I really liked them. You can have a really amazing tank with the zoas, but then you want to try something new, so you move up to the LPS, and then you eventually get to the SPS. And I think the thing is, you kind of the SPS grabs you. There's just so much variety, so many colors. There's a lot of fine detail when you get close up into them. So they kind of there's just a lot to appreciate with an SPS. And then as they grow and the structure that they build, I really enjoy that part of it. I did have a recent kind of an event with nutrients. I had things were doing really well, and everything got really big, and it started running into each other. And I had never had like a SPS tank where stuff starts running into each other and I wasn't managing it very well. I just kind of thought, okay, yeah, it'll hit this coral and it'll get a little bit of stinging and they'll figure it out. It doesn't always happen that way. So I lost some larger colonies, but I learned a lot in that process, what to do the next time I get to that phase, and kind of really enjoying starting that journey back up with the SPS. So I have a lot of frags in here and they're kind of in the process of growing. And really for me, that is the most enjoyable part, is watching them grow from like a tiny frag to a large colony.
Well, the tank is beautiful. I love all the little nooks and crannies are filled with, you know, random corals here and there, and you've got some gems in here. That bounce mushroom is really cool. I love the scroll coral in the middle there. That's really cool. And of course, you got a decent little torch collection over here too, huh?
Yeah, I really like torches. When I got into the hobby, it was like around 2018 when I got into the hobby. When I saw, you know, torches and like YouTube videos and stuff, I was like, yeah, the motion, I really like that. I mean, I also liked the same kind of motion from anemones. The problem with the anemones is they always tend to move around in my tank. So then I settled on the torches, but then, you know, there was the whole band that existed with the Indo. And so it was kind of hard to get torches, but slowly over time, having good friends in the area and making connections, I was able to get the kind of torches that I want. So yeah, and the torches seem to do pretty well for me. I'm not really sure why that is, but I seem to have pretty good luck with the torches.
We had looked at your lights, and you have quite the array of lights. Can you go through all the different brands that you have up there?
Yeah. So I started with radions. People said that radions will grow coral. So I'm like, okay, so if I get radions, then I don't have to, if things are not going well, then I can at least say it's not the lights. There must be something else. So I started with the radions, and when I got to this tank, I realized, okay, I'm gonna need a lot more light. And then also I was looking for, I wanted a specific look. I wanted the shimmer that you get with the Kessels, so I wanted that. But then I also wanted the radions because I really had good luck with the growth. I ended up putting a Kessel on there with the radions, but then, you know, Reef Brights, you get the pop with the blues, so I also wanted that pop, so then I added Reef Brights in there. And then at some point, you know, when my nutrients got really high, I thought, well, I should try to drop the nutrients by having more photosynthesis. So then I added some more punch to it using these Aquatic Life HM Electronics LED lights. I got a good deal on those lights on Amazon.
You don't see those too much in the hobby. We all kind of scratched our head. It was like, oh, have we seen these before? No. So what piqued your interest there?
When I researched them, it looked like they were made out of really good components. I went for those, and they've been working really well for me. They pack a lot of punch, so the par with them is quite a bit. I added 2 of those in as well, so I have tons and tons of par now, so that's not
all over the tank.
Yeah, but you know, of course, that didn't fix my problem. So you know,
it rarely is light that is the issue. However, I'm sure the corals appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. So it also gave me the opportunity to get the light a little bit more spread out across the tank, and I think that's one thing I really like, is to have as few shadows as possible. And then, you know, keeping a mixed reef is a little bit of a challenge. By having less shadows, it also gives me an opportunity to place corals that want low light in like crevices and places like that, but they're still able to get a little bit of light.
One of the coolest features of this tank is actually not the tank itself, but what's sitting right next to the tank. Will you show me this frag setup that you've made over here?
You know, this kind of just like, it serves multiple purposes. I needed a table to work on right next to the tank whenever I'm fragging or anything like that. And also, this was really like one of the places that I had available for having a frag tank. So I wanted a frag tank, so I decided to make a frag tank table.
This is where your powder blue is hanging out right now, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is where the powder blue is right now. And you know, when I got him, he was relatively healthy. He was got him from the LFS where they were medicating him and things like that. But I know powder blues are extremely sensitive, so you have to be really careful.
Well, let's see your sump real quick. I know it's not, I know you don't have a ton of stuff back there, but let's
Yeah, sure.
let's take a look at that real quick.
But one of the reasons I put the sump back here instead of under the tank is just so it's easier for me to work in. I also raised it up a little bit. That way I don't have to bend down. I think it's a trigger system sump. It's actually, they call it a Triton, ideal for like if you have a Triton system, you have a large refugium, and then you have like a smaller skimmer. And I kind of started in that direction. I wasn't running Triton, but I had, you know, the Kato and everything. And then just over time, I just decided I don't want to grow algae, I want to grow coral. So I got rid of the Kato. So right now, the only thing I have for mechanical filtration is the skimmer. So I guess it's like a Berlin.
Some of the best tanks have zero mechanical filtration. So and the only thing you're running is calc, right? That's all you're.
Oh yes,
dosing?
yeah. So this is my calc reactor here, which is actually just a chamber off of a calcium reactor, and I just have a stir bar in there, and then a stir plate from Amazon and El Cheapo stir plate from Amazon that seemed to work. I feed RO using a dosing pump, and then the pressure from the reactor pushes the calc into the tank.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have like a little tube that comes down to maybe about here. So when it starts stirring, it doesn't necessarily grab like a full slurry, but quite a bit of a slurry. I call it a semi-slurry, yeah, the trademark, right? So I just open this up, dump a couple of cups of calc in there, and then close it up.
Salem is in town, and well, we need to put him to work, so why don't we'll get him on camera here, and then you can ask your coral questions to him.
So how long ago did you have the STN issue on the base here with that guy?
Like I said, you know, I was dealing with the nutrient issues, so there was some instability in the tank, and that instability, and actually the stag here is relatively hardy coral, and it was interesting to see that on the stag. It started, I would call it RTNing, I would say about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So it did it, 2 weeks ago, it went about halfway up from where you see it now. And then the following week, it went up a little bit more. And since then, it has stopped.
Okay, so your phosphates were bottomed out, you got them back up in that time, then that stopped the recession.
Exactly.
What were your nitrates at during that time? Did you test them?
They were a little bit low. They were around 2.5.
Did you have any other colonies that RTN'd during that time?
Yes, I did. Actually, I had a pretty large size pink lemonade colony. I would say it wasn't at its 100%, and because you know, the nutrients went low, that also just completely died. Luckily, I was able to take a few frags of it.
So it had been struggling previously. Has this stag been struggling previously, or it was good?
No, this stag has never struggled. I feel like it was a pretty solid stag. As a matter of fact, you know, I've had times where my nutrients were very high, and it didn't care.
So from what you've described, I don't think that this was like a massive pathogenic event. If you would have saw a lot more die-off if this was like, you know, a virulent bacterial issue that typically people associate with RTN, STN. Because it was already a struggling colony, that makes sense. That could have been a localized issue. But that guy from the base up, I mean, you'll typically see base up, STN, RTN when you have a swing, when you bottom out, ALK. It's kind of like that. From the tips and things is more pathogenic. In my mind, this is really consistent with something like endolithic algae, like being in a dysbiotic state instead of bacteria. So I can see the base is dark right now. When the flesh initially came off, was it a white skeleton, or the skeleton has always been discolorized like that?
It was always kind of like brownish.
Yeah, so I mean, typically the endolithic algae, it's, you know, in a good concentration in all the coral. Every coral has single-celled algae or colonies of algae living in their skeleton, which typically helps with nutrient cycling. So the coral will expel excess nitrogenous waste. They actually can then go and convert that. They can either utilize it, or there's some bacteria associated with them which convert it into ammonia, which then creates a whole loop where the coral eat the ammonia and things like that. But because you bottomed out on your phosphates, but you still had detectable nitrates, to me that could have caused something a little bit wacky to where, you know, they were still getting nitrogen, but the coral animal themselves might not have been able to keep pace or keep in balance with that because they didn't have phosphate for metabolism. And the fact the skeleton is stained and it's not bone white, that's really indicative of something endolithic, whether it be bacteria, fungi, or the algae, or a combination of them, outpacing the coral and outcompeting it internally. And then the fact that when you got your phosphates back up, it stopped. I mean, if that was a bacterial issue, it would have kept on trucking. It would not have stopped at that point if it was much more pathogenic. I think, yeah, things are pretty good, and that's, at least anecdotally, really indicative of a healthy and balanced system in like the microbiology term, sort of way.
Do I need to take any action on this? What do you recommend?
So the thing I would do for sure is potentially look at dosing ammonia. I've been doing it. A lot of people have been doing it. That can feed the entire nitrogen cycle. Coral will directly uptake ammonia. So typically, if you have an issue with endoliths beginning to outcompete the coral animal, that comes from a nutritional place. So obviously keeping your phosphates up and stable instead of letting them bottom out, but also having the nitrogen side of things. So because you've still got corals that are kicking but are relatively pale now from that event, giving them that nutrition directly, allowing them to have a usable nitrogen source. Like, you've got a lot of fish, but you've got a lot of coral too. And if you continue to grow that, you're basically dosing fish in that way to where you can give them the nitrogen source they actually can utilize. So I mean, yeah, corals enzymatically cannot use nitrates as an ammonia or a nitrogen source, but they do directly uptake ammonia. In terms of that stag in particular, you could detach it from the base and reattach it if you wanted to. I don't like to say, because it has not spread more and it has stopped, that's indicative to me that it's, unless you have another stress event, it's not likely to continue. If you address that nutrient issue, it's also likely to become balanced again in the rest of the coral. But if you're worried about it, you could always cut like an inch up from the recession site and remount it. But it looks pretty good. So yeah, I think it's happy. That's optional. You could always send in an aquabiomics report to see your baseline, to see if there's anything that's very pressing, but I think you would have seen that rear its head in a much more aggressive way with bottoming out if there was something. Yeah, we really appreciate you letting us come out, showing us your tank, inviting us into your beautiful home, giving us mochi donuts. Sure. There was a lot to enjoy here, and I think that this is something that's really educational and will be, some great content. That's a good example. You've got a beautiful and healthy tank, and you're doing a lot right that I think a lot of people can learn from, and it looks great.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you guys coming down here. I know it was a long drive for you guys, and you guys are tired from the swap from yesterday. That's a lot of work. I know it's quite exhausting, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come down here and help me document my tank and giving me some good insights and information into how these corals function. Appreciate it.
Huge thanks to Amir for the donuts and of course letting us invade his space for a couple hours. I think I want to make myself a Frag tank table now. Aside from the wide array of light brands in Amir's tank, it just goes to show that if you master the basics, you can really have a beautiful reef tank in your home. I can't wait to show you the next aquarium from Salem's trip, this 20-year-old reef tank. It's beautiful. It's coming up in the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you know when we post that video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.